Welcome on today's conversation on the future of work, where AI isn't just a buzzword, but a business driver. This is Lenovo Work Reborn, live in Orlando. Hello and welcome to the Lenovo Work Reborn podcast. My name is Rita, your host, and I'm joined today with a lovely guest. Mica is here today to give us some more insights about how, the future of work is looking like and his perspective on that. So, Mica, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here. Do you mind introducing yourself to listeners who don't know who you are? Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure. My name is Mica Ashmore. I work at Alterman Electric. We are an electrical specialty contractor in South Texas. We've got offices up in Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, San Antonio, of course, El Paso, Las Cruces, New Mexico area. And we manage and drive and do large electrical construction projects, mostly focusing on data centers, water, wastewater treatment facilities, industrial type work. We also do low voltage and service work.
Okay, awesome. So the case study in which we're talking about from your perspective here is more so from that perspective, from that background, right? And I really like that because on the show, we're really trying to highlight different points of view from various industries. Mm-hmm. So before we get into a little bit more of that part of the conversation, though, I don't know if you know, but you probably know, we are a partner with FIFA. And I thought we'd start off our conversation with an icebreaker question. How does that sound?
Sure.
All right, let's do it. So in sports, there are very clear identificators of who is a premier athlete and doing well and who isn't. And often athletes have great teams behind them that are doing a lot of work behind the scenes in order to raise that person up to the level that they are at, right? But that is also a great analogy for work and life and business in the day-to-day. You need a great team and you need processes and systems to support your rockstar team members. So do you see parallels between supporting elite athletes with world-class tech linked to potentially supporting employees with AI-enabled IT tools?
Oh, 100%. Going back to my context as being an electrical, contractor, when it comes, we've got a lot to do. There's so much going on, and so we always have to focus on prioritizations. And then how do we prioritize? So we focus on how do we support those who are generating revenue, and how do we alleviate that bottleneck of resources to that? So when I think about that in our context, our field electricians and our project managers. So I feel those are the rock stars. Those are the superstars, the elite athletes of our company. And so everything that we do, we should try to focus on them to make sure that any actions that we take supports them, because I'm not making money. I oversee continuous improvement efforts, but I'm not generating revenue. Our electricians in the field are. Our general foremen, our foremen, our apprentices, and project managers are enabling that. So just like that elite athlete, parallel, as long as we're supporting them, they're the rock stars. They're the ones who are getting the job done. So
let's dive in a little bit more about when properly supported, what outcomes of the work and business environment could look like, specifically when it comes to the future of work, right? So we call it Work Reborn, bringing new life to the modern workplace. What does that look like or mean to you?
I think it means really just changing how do we process and how do we take these dynamic situations where you've got forces that are influencing, impacting that situation. Again, I keep going back to our field electrician. He or she's having to deal with other trades, the general contractor, environmental activities or situations. It could be hot, cold, it could be stuff laying around. But when you look at that, there's also a lot of information flow that comes with that. So the way I look at it is how can we enable them to be able to consume that information that's going to drive their productivity and just make their lives easier. You add a step or two to a foreman's process, it might seem like from, our nicely air-conditioned, office, like 2 or 3 steps, that's nothing. But in reality, when you're adding 2 or 3 steps to that foreman's work, that is the difference between getting something done or not. So how can we alleviate that? How can we minimize that just to make their consumption of information more effective and more direct? And so using AI tools, using new technologies, I feel if used correctly, that can really help move that needle forward to make their lives easier, ultimately resulting in more productivity and more profitability.
Isn't that the point at the end of the day, is to empower employees to feel more productive so that they can get better results?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Even if, you can't forget the folks at the office who are also helping, right? But even for them, the more effective they can be at helping our field, the more empowered they can feel to be able to make decisions that help drive that momentum, move that needle. So.
To kind of round out the conversation here, maybe back a little bit to the FIFA analogy, I think a team is nothing without a great coach, right? That good leadership that's putting in these protocols and getting the team ready, right? And we're talking about AI readiness here. So in your opinion, what do you think leaders should be doing or considering to make sure that their teams are AI ready?
A couple of things. Well, first of all, I think we need to realize and make sure that the narrative that's being communicated, it's not about fear. It's not about taking away people's jobs. It's about making them more efficient, more effective. And I think by communicating that understanding, I think it's going to make a huge difference. Because in reality, I see AI as a tool, and we have to better understand how to use that tool effectively. Because even though we could take a specification, we could take contract drawings, again, construction context,
Right.
We could drop it into some AI system, but we still have to understand what's being generated. We still have to understand what the outcome of that is to our benefit, because if we don't, we're going blind and we're not using it correctly. But if we can use it correctly, understand that it's just really a different way of working, I think that can really, hopefully, inspire and change hearts and minds, if you will.
Just like a true heroic, hero's journey story in sports, right? Once everyone is uplifted and they've been brought together and led by that great team and they've won, then the momentum will continue, right?
Oh, of course. Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Right.
I think Cool Runnings, I think whatever ragtag team story,
Yes.
whatnot.
Yes.
I can't think of any specific movie references.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of them out there.
Yeah, there are.
You
Well,
know.
thank you so much for coming by, Micah, and
welcome.
sharing your thoughts on the modern workplace. If anyone is interested in learning more about our Work Reborn report, make sure you check it out. If you're listening, it'll be in the link in the description below. And if you're watching us on YouTube, hello, make sure you download the report via the QR code on the screen here and follow and subscribe to the Work Reborn podcast. And that'll be a wrap. It's been a pleasure, Micah.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us live in Orlando for this amazing episode of Work Reborn. I've been your host, Rita Risha, and it's been a pleasure to bring you insightful conversations from around the world, especially at this event, on how we are bringing new life to the modern workplace. If you enjoyed this episode and you want to stay tuned on more ways that we are doing just that, make sure to like, follow, and subscribe our channel and download a copy of the Work Reborn report today.
Lenovo.